Alright, folks, I'm going to give you my quick and dirty UFC 197 Jones versus OSP predictions. Obviously, it was going to be John Jones against not OSP, it was going to be John Jones against Daniel Cormier in a rematch for the light heavyweight title, but Cormier, he got a wussy flu and had to bow out. So now we've got John Jones taking on OSP in the main event. And really, I mean, empirically, this should be an absolute cakewalk for John Jones. Now, we know he's been out for a while. We know he's got ring rust. We know he's been training pretty much expressively to take on a guy like Daniel Cormier, who fights very, very different from OSP. So, I mean, in a way, you can kind of look at this as being almost like a trap game, like in college football, where you're going out and you're playing like a Division III school or like a team that's like the last place team in one of the Power Five. And because you overlook them, we've seen it happen before. I mean, if you don't take your opponent seriously, if you think you can go in there using one strategy against a guy who has a completely different fighting style, bad things happen. That said, kind of go with the law of averages. I mean, John Jones has fought guys who fight very similarly to OSP before. Guys like Quentin Rampage, which I think is pretty much the closest that we have as being a comparison point for how I think this fight will play out. I mean, OSP, he's good, but he can't close the gap. I mean, he's like Anthony Johnson, except not as good, which says a whole lot about this guy's striking ability. So he's going to go in and get close, but John Jones obviously has the range to working in his favor. And I think John Jones goes out there, he hasn't had a really impressive finish in a while. And I think he makes a big statement with this one. He goes in there, he weathers the storm against OSP early, and he knocks him out in the second round. TKO. I'm going to go with elbows. We haven't seen that in a while. It's a very dangerous asset. And I think he'll show him off again for this one. All right, co-main event, a flyweight championship, Demetrius Johnson. And this is very interesting because we actually have the two guys who are pretty much considered the pound-for-pound two best MMA fighters on the planet headlining a show. And nobody cares, which tells you that we got some booking problems in these divisions. Demetrius Johnson taking on Henry Cejudo. Demetrius Johnson, when he fights, he either wins like a 5-round grueling war of attrition, or he just beats the crap out of him in the first round and knocks him out. So flip a coin. I don't think Cejudo wins this one. I mean, he's pretty impressive. He's a really, really good wrestler, probably the best wrestler Demetrius Johnson's ever fought. But he's got to catch him. And Johnson, as we know, this dude is fast. He is elusive. He's bobbing and weaving. And I think if it stays standing, and Johnson, he's a smart dude, one of the most technically proficient fighters out there, he's going to keep it standing. He's not going to make it a ground battle. And if he does, he's got better submissions anyway. I got Johnson winning unanimous decision, 5 rounds. Anthony Pettis taking on Edson Barboza in a fight that would have been awesome in like 2011. I don't know. It should be the fight of the night. Just going back and forth. Barboza. He's one of those guys where he's a peaks and valley fight if there ever was one. And where he goes in, he wins a fight, loses a fight, wins a fight. Every time you think he's on the precipice of breaking the top 10, he has a really dumb loss. But he's on a career upbound as of late. Anthony Pettis kind of on the opposite end. I mean, he's had some pretty tough losses lately. And I still don't think he's really healed 100% from the fight against Rafael dos Anjos. So like I said, it's a tough one. You can flip a coin on this one, but I think ultimately Anthony Pettis ends up winning it. Decision, split decision actually, which should be a really good fight. Robert Whitaker versus Rafael Natal, two really good middleweights trying to make themselves championship material. Actually, this might be a better fight than Pettis Barboza. Yeah, definitely the most competitive I'm seeing here. Really hard to kind of go with. I haven't really seen as much of either of these guys as I'd like to. But I'm going to go with Whitaker just because I like his boxing. I've seen him fight a little bit better. He's got really impressive striking. What I've seen from Rafael Natal, this hasn't been as good. I'm going to take that as a variable. I got Whitaker, 3rd round, surprise knockout. Featherweight, Yair Rodriguez taking on Andre Fili. Once again, I've seen these guys fight, but I don't think I've really seen enough of them to kind of gauge, how they'll do in a contest. I've seen like 16 John Jones fights, 11 Demetrius Johnson fights, like 8 with Anthony Pettis. I know how the dudes fight, but when you're watching Yair Rodriguez and Andre Fili, I'm using like a referential point of like 3 or 4 fights between the both of them. So it does feel a little bit of a charlatan to make a pick there. But just from what I've seen, I'm going to go with Andre Fili. I think he's got a little bit better wrestling than Yair Rodriguez. I'm not using the stats anymore because I just don't have time. I barely have time to make these videos, let alone do these long, drawn-out, fight metric evaluations. So I'm going to go with Andre Fili. All right, and for the preliminary fights, just going down the card, making quick gut reaction picks. Sergio Pettis against Chris Kalides. The Pettis brothers always fight together for some reason. Just weird. Pettis, but he never really wins. I got Kalides winning by decision. Danny Roberts taking on Dominique Steele. Well, I'm not going to vote against a guy named Dominique Steele, so I got his in winning that one. Women's strawweight Carla Esparza taking on Juliana Lim, which is actually really good for a fight that low down on the card. I'm going to go with Esparza by second round stoppage. Gleico Franco taking on James Vick. I have no idea who these two guys are. I'm assuming James Vick is a relative of Michael Vick, which means he'll lose. I'm going to give it to Gleico Franco submission, second round. All right, in the UFC Fight Pass shows, Walt Harris against Cody East. Harris, knockout first round. He's a really good prospect. Marcos Rogerio de Lima taking on Clint Hester. I'm going to go with de Lima by decision, unanimous. And our curtain jerker, Efrain Escudero taking on Kevin Lee. Kevin Lee, second round stoppage. So there we go, UFC 197. It could be interesting. We got the two best fighters in the world fighting guys who are probably going to get the crap beat out of them. Got a pretty decent undercard, and we got nothing really else going on this weekend, so why not check it out?